It's the week of April 23rd, 2018, and you're listening to the Pioneer Growing Point Agronomy Podcast. Today we discuss delayed planting considerations, and we welcome special guest Sarah Betzold to the show. I'm your co-host, DuPont Pioneer Field Agronomist Brian Buck. With me is DuPont Pioneer Field Agronomist Josh Schaffner. This is episode 8 of 2018. Welcome back, listeners.
Well, Brian, I think spring has finally arrived. It's been a long time coming, but certainly the weather out there is nice today, and the 10-day forecast looks extremely favorable to hopefully get in the field. Sarah Betzold, welcome to the show. First-time guest on the show. DuPont Pioneer District Leader in Southeast Minnesota and Central Minnesota. But yeah, welcome.
Thanks, Josh. Good to be here. It's a good day when the sun is shining. There's 60 degrees, and you meet a Pioneer sales representative delivering seed on your way in.
Yeah, certainly a lot of that taking place this week. And Brian, one of the big questions is that I get every day, when are we going to get to the field? It's going to vary with the way the spring and the snow melt has went. But, I think here by the weekend, I expect to see some things going on here and there. May not be planning, but I expect things to take off.
Yeah, especially get into the coarser soils. I mean, we had snow cover not that long ago, and you look out now, it's pretty much like you said on your way over road ditches, so maybe north slopes, but not a lot of snow left. We got 60-degree weather plus with sunshine, it looks like, for a week. So I would expect probably some alfalfa to start growing in the ground maybe this weekend. On some coarser soils especially, I think things will get moving right away this weekend. So if the forecast holds, obviously, we keep that sunshine along with the heat. So yeah, things look good.
Yeah. So, Brian, before we get into talking corn CRM and some other things here, Sarah, you joined the show to talk a little bit about our community investment program, something we're really proud of here at DuPont Pioneer, and just kind of kicked off a new season of that, and hopefully we can share some details for us.
Absolutely, Josh. Last year, with our community investment program, we invested over $20,000 in just Minnesota alone. So pretty excited that we can do this again this year. And really the whole point is to infuse that direct support where our employees, our sales reps, and our customers live. So rural Minnesota is exactly where we want to infuse these dollars. So what are they? Community investment dollars are really for those nonprofit organizations that have projects that we can help with. So examples of those, think FFA, grain rescue equipment at fire departments, 4-H projects. Brian, you just talked about the local ag classroom.
Yeah, we put up a greenhouse in town here for my hometown, and yeah, it's great help. I think those are big projects, so any help goes a long ways.
Absolutely. So requests, Josh, Brian, our applications are due, and we really need the nonprofit organizations to complete the application themselves. But you can get the link to apply from your Pioneer sales reps, but really due through that September timeframe. I believe the date is September 14th, but we'd like to get as many of those in as early as possible. There may be some we need to fund before that.
Yeah, and certainly, that link, Sarah, reaching out, I think that's the big thing we want to encourage. Whether you're emailing your local Pioneer sales rep, your local territory manager. Brian, you and I have been making the rounds with the FFA class doing the podcast. Just reach out to us. We'll try to reach out and get that link out there to as many as we can along the way. But certainly don't be shy to reach out, and we'll help you get the information needed to apply.
Absolutely. Just another way to get some dollars out in the local communities to support those customers that we have. Like our billboards say, thank you, farmers.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you, Sarah, giving us some information on that, and we'll certainly do our part of getting that out there, and hopefully the podcast spurs a little interest along the way here as well. So Brian, delayed planting, the big question on every grower's mind the last 10 days. By no means have we lost the calendar yet. We're still sitting here, April 23rd, and things are starting to turn the corner. Certainly a week ago, feeling like January out here and a foot of snow, it got people a little bit concerned, but the big question is it time to consider switching corn CRMs or maturities? I'll let you tackle that question first.
Yeah, I think the simple answer is no. You start looking at the calendar, it's April 23rd today. Forecast looks great. We're going to have enough heat. We're going to have enough sun. Things are going to dry out. We are going to get in the field. You think about corn CRM, there's a couple different pieces on why I'd say no. Generally, the later the CRM of the product, the more it's going to yield. So if you look back at our history of our local replicated plots, 105-day compared to about a 95-day, for example, is going to be about 15 to even maybe 20 bushel difference in yield. So you think about that's pretty significant. If you go from that 105 down to 95 too early, you might give up 15 to 20 bushel just making that switch. So that's pretty important, I think. And so as you think about that, there's a little more moisture that comes along with that, but that's not a huge deal, I don't think, if you can get in, in the first half of May. The other thing is we get going in spring. If we get a chance to plant next week, you're going to get your 105 days in. So even if you get out of the field for a little bit, you're going to come back the next week and get your 99, 101 days in. And as the spring progresses, everything should work out good. When I really get concerned is when there's a lot of rain in the forecast, but so far it looks pretty good.
Yeah, and Brian, I think the big thing is we should just touch base on maybe 2 key dates out there. And certainly, if we reference University of Minnesota, they're going to kind of suggest to run the plan out to close to May 25th. And I think that's a date. But really, Brian, if we look at always the fullest CRMs that we're going to try to look at, which for dry grain, 105, 106 days, about the comfort limit for most growers in southeast Minnesota. I think the three of us would agree May 10th is probably that window, May 10th to the 15th, depending on your expectations, drying setup. But the yield out there, I'd say if we can get it in before that, no major concerns. Coming down below that, Brian, maybe 199 to 103 day, I'd run that all the way up close to that 25th. And Sarah, we still have a lot of days left before we got to worry about, necessarily scratching the whole plan. And I think we, 17 days left on the first round of that?
Not just days, Josh, it's weeks.
Yeah, exactly. We have a couple weeks to make that happen. 2.5 weeks to make that happen. And with the forecast now, I wouldn't make anything major change. Like Brian said, that 1.5 bushel per CRM, our data matches up identical to that. 7 years of data, 1.5 bushel per CRM. There's a little bit of moisture there, but when you talk about double-digit bushels, a point or two of moisture, you can run the math on that pretty easy.
And every setup's different. I think that just comes down to drying setup and end use. It might be silage, might be some other stuff. So, Josh, another question that I've had this week, are we losing yield yet?
Well, it's a great question. April 23rd, I'm going to say no. Certainly, usually for southeast, central Minnesota, we probably look at that May 10th time frame. As we get beyond May 10th, for corn and soybeans, both bushels start, trickling away from us. Every year we see planting date. Very rarely, Brian, does early planting corn not pay. If we look at our data, early planting corn, Brian, every year we've done our replicated trials, early planting almost always wins. And, Sarah, one way we look at that, when we look at early planting, we can look at it 2 ways. We can look at bushels, we can look at gain, but when you think about the first planting every season compared to the last, so you look at the first third compared to the last third, when you look at your value of time per hour, it's a big number. And, what's their time worth when you look at that first round of planting?
It doesn't cost any more to
Exactly.
plant today than it does to plant next week, than it does to plant a couple weeks after. So value per hour, Josh, $1,300.
Yeah, and that's a strange way to look at it, Brian. When we do look at our data, we've run many years of data that you average all that together. The first round compared to the last round is about that number when you look at yield, a little bit of moisture gain there. And certainly being ready to go here. I think really what we're trying to say is, no need to panic and make big switches. We're not losing out of yield yet, but our cushion or days of opportunity are going to be limited, and it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, so you think about, some of the factors that went into that big number. It is that 11 bushel difference from that first third to the last third. A little bit drier corn. You're assuming you're going to plant a pretty good chunk a day, about 25 acres an hour. But it's a pretty big number.
It is. It's a unique way to look at it, and it really raises some eyebrows when you look at what your time's worth there. Brian, the other thing, it's going to be a challenge, and we think about everything's getting so condensed here, but when we think about N applications, a lot of nitrogen needs to go on ahead of corn planting here. Should we wait for N applications to plant corn, or should we go out and plant corn if we're waiting?
Yeah, so that's going to be a tough question this spring. I think the whole state of Minnesota is going to be ready to plant the same day, which puts a lot of pressure on retailers. So obviously they can't get everybody spread the same day. Depending on how the forecasts look, because everybody's opinion might be a little bit different, I tend to like to plant corn if the soil's really fit. We've had some pretty good experiences where we have planted into fit ground, and then just when they could come back 3-4 days later to drop the fertilizer, that worked well. I know we've got caught where we've been not getting anything done waiting on fertilizer, and that's not the best thing either, because you think about that 11 bushel, if you don't plant it today, in theory that pushes your entire planting season back. So I don't think it's a bad thing to get a little bit of corn planted if you can't get fertilizer right away, and just have them come back over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the big thing is building that flexibility now. Be thinking about it. They're not going to be able to cover every acre the same day, and at least be thinking about if I have to go, if I'm going to wait, what's plan B, and be thinking about that ahead of time. Brian, always important to know where to find the show.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter. I am at FarmerBuck1.
I am at Josh Schaffner.
And I'm at Bet's Old Sarah.
All right. You can also find us on Twitter via Periscope Live, which we're broadcasting right now. Brian, you can also find us on the podcast on pioneerpodcast.com.
Oh, podcast.pioneer.com.
Good correction. Good
Yeah,
correction.
just go to the website and you can subscribe via iTunes there, or just listen right on your computer. Otherwise, YouTube, just keyword our names and Pioneer, we should populate up also.
Absolutely. Well, that's a wrap for episode 8 of 2018. This show was recorded in Goodhue, Minnesota. It is produced by Josh Schaffner and Brian Buck. Be sure to tune in next time.